In this project, I'm going to be adding some DC power to my outside entertainment system. And the best place to put that, I discovered, was here, at least to be able to get to the wiring. And I'd already bought this, and unfortunately it doesn't fit too well. So I bought a vertical version of it, and that's the one I'm going to use. Now the current requirements I'm going to have is only about 15 amps. And the factory ran a 14 gauge wire up to the stereo, which is available on the other side of that panel. So I'm just going to tap into that. There's no reason for me to have to run new wiring when the existing wiring is going to meet my needs. So that should make this project a little bit easier. And I finally received the new plate. This again was the old one. One of the things that just takes so much time with these projects is getting parts. Especially since I live in small town America and I just can't go down to my local store and buy one of these things. So this is going to go right in there, and I'll offset it just a little bit. It should go without saying that when we drill these holes, you should know already what's behind there. And I've already scoped that out, and I have a clear path from there to where I got to bring the wiring. And after we screwed the panel in, we just take a Sharpie and mark where we have to drill holes. Now when I drill this, I have to use this size hole saw so that I can get clearance for the nut on the back. So I have to make sure these holes are really centered well. I reverse this plate so I had a little more room. And then I have another bit that's exactly that size. And then so I'm going to use that to drill the pilots, and then the pilots will be centered. And we don't want to drill all the way through because then I wouldn't have a pilot for the larger hole saw. I've got the holes drilled. Next, I want to cut between the holes so I have a little path for the wires to go between them. And the next step is to transfer the parts from this one into this one and then pre-wire it so I can install it. And now we have the wiring all done on the back side of this. And I'll put a link for the website project page where I show how I wired this up. So if you're not sure how to wire it, you can look at that. And I'm going to test it with my little power supply here. It's just a little 3 amp Radio Shack power supply. And there we go. If you do any electrical work at all, I highly recommend buying a power supply like this. Although the Radio Shack one I don't believe is available anymore. But there are other brands that are out there, and it's indispensable for checking things like this before you install it. Or even if you have an LED puck light that you want to check, take it out of the RV, you can hook it up to your power supply. They're just really handy to have, and they're not that expensive. And I've removed the stereo, which normally is here, and also the fake fireplace, which is in here. And I find this wire is the hutch circuit, 15 amp, and this wire here is dedicated to the stereo, also 15 amp, and it's a 14 gauge wire. So I'm going to hook up to the stereo circuit because that's the only thing that's on here, and I can manage between using a stereo and whatever else I power from the outside. And if I move my camera a little bit, you can see daylight, and that's where I just drilled a hole for the outlet that we're installing. And it's really a straight shot from the outside to the inside. And I'm going to use my little fish tape. And it's kind of hard to do with the camera in a way, so I'm going to remove it, but you get the idea. It probably should go without saying that you should remove the fuse from a live circuit before you do any wiring, even on DC. Now, one interesting thing you may not be aware of is the little light on there that shows that the fuse is blown. And technically, we've removed the fuse, not blown it, but it's the same effect. It will only light if there's a current on that circuit. So if everything was completely off, that light would not be on. So just remember that when you're doing troubleshooting with fuses, you can have a blown fuse, yet that light not be on if you don't have anything powered. Now the only thing that's powered right now is the Keep Alive circuit on the stereo, but that's still enough to light the LED. And the light goes off. After removing the fake fireplace a few times over the years working on projects, the mounting holes have kind of gotten big and the screws don't fit very well. So we're going to do an old carpenter's trick, and we're just going to take a toothpick and put a little glue on it and jam it in the hole. And then when you put the screw back in, the hole will be smaller. And now the project's done, and the only thing left is turn on power. And now I have a DC outlet where I can hook up a cell phone or anything else that's 12 volts that takes 15 amps or less.